Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us as everyone's arriving. We'll just wait a moment to let everybody into the meeting room. All right. All right. Well, good evening, or I guess potentially good afternoon, depending on where you're checking in from in the world. Welcome to the President's webinar for the University of Medicine and Health Sciences. My name is Sean Powers. I'm Vice President for Admissions at UMHS. Very pleased to have you here with us this evening to learn about the University of Medicine and Health Sciences. As I look back, just a little bit about myself, I've now been in admissions for 26 years. So I'm an admissions officer by trade. And what you should know, though, is I've been working with medical students, pre-med students, for the last now 19 years. So very proud of that. So that's me. I'll be helping to moderate the session this evening. And just want to go through and introduce you to some of our panelists who are with us. First of all is Dr. Craig Eyre. Dr. Eyre, as you can see, is Assistant Dean of Student Affairs at UMHS. He also holds the title of Associate Professor of Molecular Sciences, and he's the chair of our research program. Good evening, Dr. Eyre. Thanks so much for being here.
Hi, good evening, everybody, or good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. I'm glad you can spend some time with us today. I'm happy to tell you about UMHS, about any of our academics on the island, about research, about living in St. Kitts. So just a little bit about me. I've been in university education now for about 10 years. By training, I'm an immunologist. So when you join us on St. Kitts, you'll usually see me in immunology, genetics, and some of the classes that are further through your first couple of semesters. I'm in Canada right now. That's where I did my education. That's where I'm from. So I also help out with our admissions and recruiting team while I'm here. So thank you all for joining us this evening. Happy to answer any questions you've got.
Great to have you with us, Dr. Eyre. Again, thanks so much. Also joining us this evening on the academic side, Dr. Matthew Michaud. Dr. Michaud is the Director of Main Operations for our program up in Portland, Maine, which you'll hear about in great detail. It's the bridge program between the basic sciences and the clinical sciences. He's also an Associate Director of Academic Support and Learning Development, and will be on hand to talk specifically about how we support students through their education at UMHS. Good evening, Dr. Michaud. Good to see you.
It's my pleasure to be with you tonight. We offer a unique program here at UMHS. We work as hard with our faculty as our academic support, and it's a very important part of being a medical student now, and I'm very happy to spend the evening with you.
Excellent. Great to see you. Great to see you again. Also with us this evening, we certainly cannot do this without members of our student body or alumni body. Dr. Zach Vanderveer is with us. Dr. Vanderveer is a PGY2 second-year resident in interventional radiology at Corewell Health West in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He's from Michigan originally, so of course one of the questions that we often get asked in admissions is, if I attend the University of Medicine and Health Sciences, will I be able to come home and practice? Well, Dr. Vanderveer's answer is certainly yes. So good evening, Dr. Vanderveer. I know you've had an up and down week here, but good to see you. And thanks so much for joining us and being on hand to answer questions from our prospective students in the audience.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm almost home, getting back from the hospital. I absolutely love UMHS. Can not say enough good things about it. The program, the uniqueness of the main semester compared to any other U.S. school versus Caribbean school. It's an incredible place to go to school, and excited to sort of talk with you guys about that tonight.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Dr. Vanderveer. We'll let you get home and get settled, and we'll certainly be touching base with you shortly. Also with us is a real live current UMHS student as well. She's in her fourth year. She's in her clinical rotations, originally hailing from Memphis, Tennessee. She started at UMHS in the Accelerated Review Program, or ARP, and she's doing very well in her fourth year now, currently in the midst, as you can see, of a preventative medicine elective. Allison Shipp. Allison, good evening. Thanks for being here.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for taking the time to join the webinar this evening. As mentioned, I am from Memphis, Tennessee, and I am blessed to be currently back at home. The preventive medicine elective is online, so I'm able to be around family and friends during this time. I started in the ARP program at UMHS. It was literally the best decision that I've ever made. I'm so happy to be on with you this evening to answer any questions that you may have. I was once in your position. I attended webinars, I spoke to current students, and I believe that this webinar will give you the answers that you're looking for and allow you to join our team.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Allison. It's great to see you. So as we get started, as we go through, thanks to all of you for joining us. And we've got a lot to cover in the next hour, hour and a half or so. So stick with us as you have questions. As your questions come up, please use the question and answer box at the bottom of the screen. And between myself, Dr. Ayer, we will move through and answer those questions one by one. We'll obviously cherry pick a few as well to talk about with our panel. So once again, thanks for joining us. What are we going to be covering during the course of the presentation? We'll talk about why it's important for you to look at all of your options. As you probably are aware, for many, many years now, somewhere between 50 and 60,000 applicants to medical, there are 50 to 60,000 applicants to medical schools in the United States, but only around 22,000 or 23,000 seats. And up in Canada, where Dr. Ayer hails from, there are now only about 3,000 new medical students each year as well, with somewhere close to 20,000 applicants to medical schools each year. So if you're not one of those lucky few who's gaining admission to medical school, what are your options? Certainly UMHS is one of them. We'll talk about why it's important to look at those alternative options. We'll specifically talk about the program, give you a full overview of the program from start to finish, talk about the interaction between students and faculty, how that works. We'll talk about St. Kitts, which is where our basic science campus is located, where you begin the program, go through the basic sciences. We'll talk about the curricular tracks that you have as options for you, talk about living in St. Kitts. We'll talk about moving back to the United States and then completing the second half of your program in the US, including that bridge preparation for a clinical sciences semester that's happening up in Portland, Maine, where Dr. Michaud is located, as we talked about briefly. Go into that in great detail. Talk about moving through clinical rotations, where Allison is currently located now, as you go through our hospital, our affiliate network of teaching hospitals throughout the U.S., also in Canada and Puerto Rico. We'll talk in great deal of detail about how that works as you get through and get prepared to graduate and move on to residency. You'll see outcomes, data, and information. I'm sharing quite a lot of information for you about that. Of course, Dr. Vanderveer has just gone through that himself the past couple of years. He'll be talking firsthand. And then when we get to the end of the program, you'll really have one basic question. That's how do I get in? Maybe a second question of how do I pay for it? Cover those pieces of information as well. So what you'll find over the course of the next hour and a half is UMHS represents an unbelievable opportunity and a great value for you. But as you've seen, the name of the presentation, the title of the program this evening is the President's Webinar for Prospective Students. So clearly, we cannot do this without the president of UMHS. He is someone who has spent more than 45 years now in medical education. He was involved with his father in establishing and founding one of the very first Caribbean medical schools. He's designed and developed multiple state-of-the-art campuses throughout his career. And as you will hear firsthand, he certainly maintains the highest of academic standards with a focus on academic performance and student outcomes. Through his career, he's obtained multiple approvals, different accreditations, different accrediting bodies have reviewed the programs he's been involved with, and he's come back with certainly, fantastic reviews, and he'll talk about that as well throughout the course of the presentation this evening. Very proud and honored to have with us, and you'll be very pleased to be able to hear firsthand from the president of UMHS, Warren Ross.
Hey, Sean, thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm very excited to be on this call. I love talking about UMHS and what we've achieved, what our goals, what our visions are, what our objectives are, how we establish UMHS, and talk a little bit about my background and experience. And generally, I start off with that, and I try to cover virtually every aspect of the university as we go through this presentation. And during that time, I bring people in and out, people who've had experience in different areas, and I think it's good to hear firsthand from those individuals who have experienced UMHS at many different levels, from our faculty perspective to learning specialists to graduates to students. You're really going to get a very well-rounded presentation today. So let me start kind of from the beginning. So my dad and I established one of the first offshore medical schools back in 1978. And back in those days, there weren't really many alternatives for students who wanted to seek a medical school outside the United States. They could go to Mexico, Philippines, Italy, but there was no real Caribbean experience. So my dad and I established the first offshore medical schools that it was really catering to students from the United States, where we recruited faculty from U.S. medical schools. We hired a number of deans who helped establish the curriculum, develop the program. But it was very small in the very beginning. We actually rented facilities. We had a handful of faculty, a handful of students, and we established what was called the University of Dominica on the island of Dominica, which subsequently became Ross University. And it was small, handful of faculty, handful of students, but eventually we grew it into one of what I consider one of the largest medical schools in the Caribbean at that time. But during those formative years, there was a lot of things that we accomplished. One of which was we got recognition from the U.S. Department of Education. We affiliated with over 40 teaching hospitals. Our graduates were recognized throughout the United States. And we had just a tremendous, tremendous program that considering that we were one of the first. And I tell you all this only because I gained a lot of experience and knowledge. I built all the facilities back in the early days. So I had a background in construction. I had a background in developing academic programs. And what happened back when my dad was getting close to 80 years old, he said, Warren, I think it's time for me to retire. So he decided that he was going to sell the university, but he kind of kept an eye on what was going on in the Caribbean. And he didn't really particularly like what he saw. Schools were getting very large. Class sizes were 300, 400, 500 students a semester. It was hard to provide kind of the quality academic program. People were more concerned with the revenue flow rather than the quality of the education. And he felt that students really needed an alternative to these large programs. So he came back to me and he said, you know what, we want to get back into medical education, but this time we have the resources, we have the funding, we have the knowledge, we have the experience to develop what we consider basically a U.S. medical school. We were building towards that model. We were no longer building towards a Caribbean model, and we had to. So in terms of just the facilities, since I've had over 30 years experience developing facilities, and I've built multiple schools, and I know what was available in the United States, and I know what was available in the Caribbean. I built towards a U.S. model. So in every way possible, from the laboratories to the classrooms to the learning resource center to the skills lab to the anatomy lab, every aspect of the program I feel is comparable to what you would expect if you attended a U.S. medical school. We spared no expense in this matter. Back in the days, back when we first started, we had a limited amount of funding, so it took 20 some odd years to actually build the facilities that they have today. This time we built it in 1 year, and it really is comparable to what you expect at a U.S. school. But what the key to our program and what differentiated us between all the other larger schools is it's small, it's boutique, it's individualized attention, it's personalized attention. It's a small enough class where you have anywhere between 75 and 100 students. What you would expect if you attended a U.S. school, where you can provide the resources, the counseling, the advisement that you need, and the mentoring that you need to succeed academically in the program. So, and one of the things that's really important in that is, getting really outstanding faculty that we recruit primarily throughout the United States, Canada, England. And what's important in any academic program is what is the quality and the caliber of the faculty. So first of all, in order to recruit these individuals, we had to make sure they're all appropriately credentialed. They have to have either MD, PhD, MD, and or PhD, and then they have to have substantial amount of experience teaching at a medical school. So the first round is to go through, check them out, and they're reviewed by the deans. If they make it through that first part of the review, then they are invited to come down to St. Kitts, where they actually are required to give a lecture to the students as well as peer review. And then the students at the end will provide us with a survey and let us know what they thought of the individual. Was he a good communicator? What was his PowerPoint presentation? How did he present the information? Was he knowledgeable? Was he skillful? Did he answer questions? Did he keep students engaged? So the students are really an integral part of our recruitment process. So we find highly qualified faculty that are dedicated to you, dedicated to your success. And they're complemented by a team of learning specialists that work with us. So as you go through the academic program, you're not only being mentored and working with faculty and being tutored by them, but you can rely upon our learning specialists to continue to work with you on a variety of different skill sets, which could be communication skills, writing skills, test taking skills, time management, a whole variety of things. So we're working with you at many different levels, but you can do that only because it's that small school environment. When you start to get 300, 400, 500 students, you start to get lost in the mire. And one of the things that I think is really differentiates us between many of the other schools is our attrition rate. If you look at other schools, and they don't necessarily tell you this, but many of these large schools have attrition rates that can be 30, 40, 50%. At UMHS, and I'm really proud of this, we have a 4% attrition rate. That's unheard of for any Caribbean medical school. And it's because of our dedication to you, dedication to your success, working with you, having faculty work with you, having a program set up that if you start to struggle after any block examination, you are now it's mandatory you meet with the course director. They come up with a plan, an action plan to remediate any deficiency you have. And then you are referred to learning specialists or counselors, depending upon what the circumstances are. So it's that small school environment working in state-of-the-art facilities that I think really sets us apart from any of the Caribbean schools. What would be nice maybe is for Craig to talk a little from the perspective of the faculty. What are the faculty like? How are they dedicated to your success? What do they do to accomplish that? So Craig, maybe you can talk on that a little bit.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks. So let me give you a little bit of perspective about what it's like being a faculty member for UMHS. So as President Ross mentioned, we have a whole bunch of different stuff that's going on here in a bunch of different areas for learning supports, academic supports. But let's talk about what your day looks like at UMHS and where we interact together. So starting off with, as President Ross said, to be a faculty member at UMHS, you have to have your terminal degree. So that means a PhD, an MD, an MBBS. We only hire at that level. On top of that, as he said, you have to have so many years of teaching experience, and the teaching experience needs to be in medicine, because an academic program is one thing, but medicine is very different. Medicine is essentially a skilled trade. When you really think about what medicine is, it's a practice. It's not just knowledge. And so you need to have people who can be in with you to tell you not just what you need to know, but how you apply it, what it means, what you're going to do with it. And so that is why we focus so much on hiring individuals who have experience at medical school, not just to communicate information and to design tests, but to make this real lived experience for you. And so the individuals who are at UMHS, I have a PhD. So that means I'm not a clinician, but I have worked in hospitals. I've worked with MDs, I've worked in diagnostics, I've worked in clinical trials. So my experience, not just in the classroom, is in different areas where medicine interacts with the patient, out beyond the caregiver. So when you talk about having somebody with a PhD come in, it's not somebody who's focused on research, not somebody who's focused on putting out the next paper. It's somebody who's focused on making the lived experience of medicine relevant to you. And we bring them in as specialists. So as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm an immunologist by training. And so my primary teaching is in immunology. But on top of that, my experience in diagnostics made me a good fit for genetics. My experience in the molecular sciences made me a good fit for cell bio. So we put people in areas of their expertise. So pathologists who are teaching pathology, pharmacologists who are teaching pharmacology. That means you as a student get the highest quality experience possible from your faculty members. This is not a grad student who's getting a couple of bucks to be in the classroom with you and mark your papers. This is somebody who has been in the same shoes that you want to be in. So that's the minimum standard of entry. And I just want to give you an experience actually from this week. So in addition to talking with students, I also interview prospective faculty, and we've had some interviews lately. There was an individual who is great on paper, fantastic, but their focus is not on education. And as President Ross said, we take it very, very seriously what the experience of the student is going to be with this person. And when President Ross says that we take the reviews of the students into account before we put somebody in the classroom with them, that's not just talk. So there were individuals who thought this guy was going to be great, everything was going to be fantastic, but the students didn't think maybe it was a good fit. And that resonated in the evaluation for them. So we take the ability to be a good medical educator to be the priority. So what does my classroom look like now? I have 55 students in my classroom. Right now I'm in Canada, but I'll be on the island again next week. So I have 55 students. I'm going to know them because they're going to spend every morning with me. 8 o'clock in the morning, this is the face that they're going to see. And I'm in with them for an hour and a half then. After that, I have a dedicated block of time, office hours every day. So that means I am accessible to them on an immediate basis. They don't have to wait and wonder or figure out what's going on, or if they have doubts or questions, they can get immediate real-time feedback. And we do that on a daily basis. All of the professors maintain their office hours on a daily basis for exactly that reason. So not only do you get the quality of the instruction, but you get immediate accessibility to one-on-one help if that's what you need. Think about the professors that you may have had in your undergraduate or your graduate experiences. How much time did you really spend with them, except maybe your one supervisor? You might see them 3 hours a week. Well, my students are going to see me for 10 hours a week. That's 3 times the amount of contact. They're going to get to know me, how I teach, what I focus on, how I test. I'm going to get to know them. I'm going to know how they respond, where they struggle, where we can go faster. So the education becomes very, very customized on a per semester basis. You don't get that kind of reactivity in a generic classroom with 400 students. So after that, what else do we provide for our supports? Well, I am the academic advisor for 22 students this semester. I got my list today, actually. So I was emailed today. These are the students who are your academic advisees. So I emailed all of them today to say, hi, you might not remember that you have an academic advisor, but I'm here. If you need any help with classes, with scheduling, with study skills, with just talking through things. I've had students who showed up in their first semester because they were struggling with anatomy, and I'm not an anatomy professor, but they just needed somebody to talk to, and they knew that I was accessible. So those 22 students now know that they have an absolutely dedicated academic advisor for them ready to go. I hand out my email address. I hand out my WhatsApp address, and I say, however you want to get in contact, you get in contact with me. Don't worry about it. So that means my time is entirely focused on the success of my class and the students that are at the school. That is not what you get in most other universities. So just to give you a comparison, in an average North American university, faculty members follow what's known as the 50-30-20 rule. 50% of their time is supposed to be dedicated to teaching and accessory hours for teaching. 30% is research and 20% is service. That means 50% of the time of a faculty member has nothing to do with their students and has nothing to do with their success. Whereas 100% of my day is focused into a student success. So the design of the school right from the beginning is focused on how do we make this better, more accessible, more responsive, and more effective for the teaching and learning environment.
Thank you, Craig. Yeah, one of the things that was very interesting, we just recently went through an accreditation site visit, and we have multiple accreditations, and one of the accreditors is a group called ACCM out of Ireland. They've adopted the LCME Standards of Accreditation Liaison Committee of Medical Education. LCME is the body that actually accredits U.S. medical schools. So they've actually adopted their standards, and because of that, they are recognized by the U.S. Department of Education through a body called NCFMEA, National Council for Foreign Medical Education Accreditation. So when this body comes down, and they're responsible for actually accrediting a number of Caribbean medical schools, at the exit interview, that one of the things that they said to me is that UMHS is very unique in comparison. And then once again, they've accredited a number of schools in the Caribbean. They said that our administration, the deans, myself, are so unique, and you're so dedicated to the students, and the students recognize that and realize that. And it's really different. I don't know how many people out here went to a large school. I went to University of Maryland. There was 50,000 students there. I had no clue who the president was, let alone did I ever meet half the faculty that I actually had classes in. In some of my classes, there was like 400 students, 500 students in the classroom in some instances. I mean, here you actually get to know everybody. You're going to get to know your faculty. You're going to get to know your deans. It's all open door policy. I make sure that at the very beginning of every semester, I'm at the orientation. So I get to spend, a lot of time with you during the orientation. We go out on a catamaran trip, or we have a beach party, and I spend the entire day getting to know every one of you. And so we're very unique. It's that caring, it's that dedication to you. When you're accepted into this program, I feel morally obligated that I have to do everything in my power to ensure your success academically. And I do. You can send me emails. I will respond at 3-4 o'clock in the morning sometimes. And I will never let an email go unresponded to. So I believe in communication. I believe that my school only gets better with the input from our students. And that's, I think that flows through to our faculty, our administrators, and everybody that's down there. So that's kind of what sets us apart. Good segue now is to bring in Matt, because we talked a little bit about the faculty and their dedication to you and how important that is, because when you start medical school, you want to succeed. You want to become a doctor. You're going into this for a very specific reason. It's not only the 4 years of education, it's the rest of your life that you're going to be studying. And you want to make sure that the people who are guiding you and the resources that you have are essential to ensuring your success. Matt's a really big part of that picture, as well as the faculty. So Matt, maybe you can just kind of describe what the learning specialists do, starting in the very beginning as ARP or in the first semester, and then going all the way through your medical education.
Ways to do so. We build relationships with students, and we build a relationship with students outside of the traditional classroom. In the ARP program, students are matched with a learning specialist who actually teaches in the classroom. And develop skills that might be absent. Part of it is, it's safe to say we developed test taking skills, we developed time management skills. But I think the big thing that we develop is that we develop confidence. We develop working with students in a way that allows them to feel comfortable asking for help. We allow them permission to feel comfortable feeling vulnerable, and always giving and sharing with students a way that we create some solutions for those challenges when we feel vulnerable. Students meet with a learning specialist throughout their course program, but it's in conjunction with their faculty member. The faculty member will have a number of specific areas that they may want a student to improve. I remember one test that I took, in immunology, as simple as it sounds, I got everything with white blood cells wrong. And we were able to pinpoint that, and we had a laugh. But that faculty member truly helped me. But the learning specialists work with folks in a very holistic way, in a very way that develops them in every way possible. From conversations about their parents think that med school is expensive, to that meta talk that every medical student does that says, do I belong here? And am I keeping pace? And we give very concrete, specific information for that. And we watch a person's progress. When they get to Maine, Maine is the fifth, we call it the fifth semester. You're finishing basic science skills, and the student is ready to move on to using clinical skills, and to begin to develop them in a way that it helps them recognize clinical scenarios, and it gives a clue into what happens on the national exams. When I first started doing this type of work, I didn't like when students talked about orientation, in orientation, that they had questions about step one. And I've really matured in that over the last few years, because now I realize that it's such an important part of what we do. Our school will talk about step one in very helpful, constructive ways throughout your entire time that you're in school. It is never going to be a secret. It is always going to be open, and that's our progress that we're looking towards making. We have a new group of students in Maine here in January, and it's kind of an exciting time for me because students have worked hard for 2 years, and always in med school, they're learning that, oh, this is the next stage. After us, they go to clinical rotations. Well, after clinical rotations, they go to residency. Well, after residency, they're always looking forward to going to the fellowships. And we really look to instill and encourage that enthusiasm about learning and about being excited about how we spend every day. The first month uh, in meeting with new students that come to Maine, try to meet them as quickly as I can, because we're going to do some intense work for the 4 months that they're in Maine. There are some doubts. People have some gaps. They have some holes about where they're worried about what they're learning and what they've learned so far and where they stand. And we really encourage the students to recognize that gap and begin to build on it. My favorite 6 weeks of the semester is, of course, the last 6 weeks. Students are feeling confident. They're feeling reflective on how much they have learned, how much work that they have done in learning not only basic science things, really making it deeper and stronger than what it was just a month ago. But they're also excited about what they know and how they're putting their physical work with what they know with their hands into what they brought into with their hearts and using their mind as well. And so I see students truly develop holistically. I heard a interview of one of the new quarterbacks recently, and he said that the NFL goes fast for him. And I think that the main semester goes fast for students because they're so excited about what they're learning, who they're learning it with. And really, in Maine, they begin to differentiate themselves and begin to understand what their personal skills are and their personal abilities that they're bringing to the medical field for the next stage that they're preparing for.
Thank you, Matt. So, so what are the things that we do to help you succeed? Um, 2 years ago, we had a traditional block examination, which you find at many U.S. schools, where you sit for block 3 times a semester, and all examinations are given within a 1 or 2 day period of time. Kind of try to simulate what USMLE is like. But we wanted to do something, a little bit more unique, and we felt that in order to keep students engaged, we wanted to start implementing a requirement that you would have either weekly or every 2 weeks quizzes that were USMLE style questions. And that's really important because then you, as a student, would know if you're understanding the material and if you needed additional help. Once again, faculty have office hours, and we encourage students from the very beginning to get to know their faculty members. So by doing these weekly quizzes, you're going to know if you understand the material or not. The other thing that I really like is that we've just implemented a new program to implement what they call Turning Point hardware and software. So Turning Point is utilized at many universities around the country. And what it does is it allows a faculty member to shoot out questions to you electronically. All students have their computers there. And then you all respond to the question, and based on the results of the answers, faculty member either moves on or stays on the topic to make sure that you understand the material. So we're implementing that now, and that's going to go across all the classes in the basic science program. In terms of the curriculum, traditional basic science curriculum, you can either complete it in 4 or 5 semesters, depending on if you're in the basic science program or the extended basic science program. Traditional anatomy, histology, physiology, pharmacology, microbiology, biochemistry, what you would expect if you attended any of the U.S. schools. When you're taking examinations, our faculty are trained in how to develop USMLE style questions. So the quizzes are USMLE style questions. Your block examinations are USMLE style questions. And then final examinations can either be a homegrown exam created by the faculty. They already know and understand what USMLE requirements are for their individual courses. They map it to MBME. Or you sit for a shelf examination. Shelf examination is created by the National Board of Medical Examiners. Shelf examinations are utilized by all the medical schools in the United States. We now offer 9 shelf examinations per semester, and those are all USMLE questions that they've created because they are the body that actually creates the USMLE that you sit for at the end of the day. So that helps prepare you for USMLE. So block examinations, USMLE style, shelf examinations, USMLE style. And then at the very beginning of when you first start school, we wanted to give you every resource possible. So you have now full access to 2 of the premier review programs, AMBOSS and Kaplan. They have extensive question banks for you to be able to utilize content, video series, very robust programs to help prepare you. So you can kickstart your review starting from your first semester on. And then that's culminated in your last semester when you're finally in Maine, where you have a 15-week integrated review program, which integrates clinical material into the review for a period of 15 weeks, offered by the Kaplan people from Kaplan Medical. We are now looking at ways to enhance that program. We're one of the few schools that actually even has a review program. I think we may be the only one that has a 15-week review program, but we are now investigating and looking at, and I formulated a committee, how we could integrate the best of all the various review programs that are currently out there into our 5th semester, which would include UWorld, AMBOSS, First Aid, and making it even more robust than it already is. So I'm really excited about what we're going to be developing in the very near future. What's really important is USMLE has become clinically oriented. So from the 1st semester on, every course is now required to introduce clinical material throughout their course. And then you have very specific courses that are clinically oriented, like physical diagnosis, Introduction to Clinical Medicine 1, Introduction to Clinical Medicine 2, where you get a lot of hands-on experience so that when you finally complete those courses, you're really ready to seamlessly transition into a clinical program. Because remember, once you start your hospital rotations, once you complete your 5th semester in Maine, you then begin your clinical program at our affiliated hospitals in the United States. And that's where students from U.S. medical schools are going. So you want to make sure that you're on par with them, because you're ultimately, looking to get a position, a residency position at the end of the day. So you want to be able to compete on an even plane. Zach and Allison, maybe you could talk a little about how you felt about the basic science program. How prepared did you feel to enter into the clinical program, and what it was like maybe to live down in St. Kitts? Because I haven't even touched upon that, and what you can do. Michelle, is maybe you should kind of just go through pictures of the basic science campus, especially anatomy lab, because we haven't even talked about anatomy, because this is my 3rd lab that I built. But what I like really about the anatomy lab is that many of these large schools can't even offer anatomy labs because they have too many students. They can't get the cadavers for those programs. We still maintain a traditional cadaver lab. And for those people who are interested in surgery, the ability to dissect really puts you way beyond those who don't have that same opportunity, where they're using computer models and plasticizations. You're really you're beyond the curve. So maybe Zach and Allison, maybe talk a little bit about your experiences.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go first. I was accepted into the med program. And I remember always being incredibly jealous of a lot of the ARP individuals. Granted, it's you know another 15 weeks that you're in the Caribbean, but they were always so far ahead of the curve in ARP. You were given a pretty much the first week of each block of each course. And that was sort of what ARP was, just an intro accelerated review program. And so that means that every new block, people who went through ARP, it was like their second time looking through the information, which was incredibly valuable for them, and just sort of is a great opportunity. So, whether you get accepted into basic sciences, whether you get accepted into the med program, or whether you get accepted into ARP, all are incredible offers from the school. And don't be discouraged if you get accepted into ARP. It's an incredible program, and will really only put you, above your classmates coming in who haven't had that. Anatomy lab at this Caribbean medical school is better than, I think, many U.S. schools, for sure. Definitely better than, I would say, every Caribbean school. I'm at a residency program now that's affiliated with Michigan State, and we don't have anything close to the cadaver lab that we had at UMHS, and that speaks to President Ross. He's very much open to feedback and what we need as students. Like he mentioned, bringing on AMBOSS, things like that. In my sort of MS3, MS4 year, myself and one of my friends, Kirthy, sort of presented that to President Ross, and he absolutely agreed that it was a great resource, and now it's sort of included with your package. So it's pretty rare to have a president who listens to the students and just to sort of better the university as much as he does. Faculty wise, everyone is there to teach. There is no research requirement for any of the faculty. They love teaching. They want to be there. So that is one thing that I really took to heart is, there's nobody that's trying to crank out a bunch of literature or, not really into teaching. They are there for you and they want to watch you succeed. We were one of the classes that brought in Dr. Ayer. He came and they have to do a test lecture with the students, and we vote on them and see if we think that they would be a good fit for the school and a good fit for the students when it comes to learning medicine. It's very different than a lot of other courses that you get taught throughout college. And Dr. Ayer was an incredible fit. He hit it right on the nail on the head. Everything that was sort of clinically oriented to step one. And he did an incredible job. And, now he's a associate professor, and, can't say enough about him. He's done an incredible job. Living wise,
I just want to say, you didn't let me off the hook quite so easily. That whole, I taught you for 3.5 hours that day. So don't.
That's true. That is true. We didn't let you get off easy. That's for sure. And then living wise, there are a ton of options down there to live. I lived at the Royal St. Kitts, which is a sort of a hybrid between hotel and sort of apartment style living. I had a studio apartment. It was very, it wasn't the most expensive, but it wasn't the least expensive. It was right in the middle. One thing that I really wanted to be able to control was when I could work out at the gym and when I could go grocery shopping. The Royal has a grocery store that is like 200 feet from the entrance of the hotel. And I was able to walk there and buy groceries. And then they had a 24-hour gym where I could, use the facilities whenever I wanted, which was huge to me. Some people live at camps right across from the school. We just got a new bridge built that sort of goes over this goat farm that's down in the ravine, and it's a very cool thing, a very cool site. And that is a little bit cheaper and more affordable. And then there's people that live at the Marriott, and that's probably the upper end of normal. But there are a ton of living options, and the school provides transportation. At least last I knew, 7 a.m. bus pickup, and they'll take you all the way to school. Last bus comes home at 11 p.m. And I was down there to become a doctor, so that was my schedule. I got on the bus at 7 a.m., came home at 11 p.m. I'll let Allison cover some stuff. I'm a big jabbermouth, so we'll let her take over here.
All right, thank you, Zach. I agree with a lot of the things that he said. So I started UMHS as a part of the ARP program, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But the important things about that program is that it's kind of a two-tiered program. You have the academic portion and then the clinical or your study skills, portion. And that's really important because a lot of students come into this medical school program either with just a bachelor's or, like in my case, a master's as well. And so, of course, I thought I knew exactly how to study, how to approach all of the content. And you have to be open to learning that sometimes your study skills need to be tweaked for a different type of content, and that's okay. So as a part of the ARP program, they definitely taught us study skills. They enforced your learning style, which is very important for medical school. I'm a color coder. I literally have like colored pens here. And that's how I learn. So I was able to adjust that study schedule and learning platform for myself in ARP to make sure I was getting a firm foundation and learning the material and the content that would be beneficial for me throughout ARP and as a part of the EBS program. And so during ARP, you learn from the professors that are teaching the course as a medical student for basic sciences. And that's wonderful because you are introduced to the content, introduced to their teaching styles. They learn how you learn, and you get to build that relationship with your professors. You also meet other peers in your ARP program. You're able to form study groups, which is wonderful for studying together and supporting each other throughout this time. And the TAs are there as well. Each of the courses has a TA, which is a student that has already taken this course and performed well. The TAs have office hours and study groups for the students, and the professors also have open door policies. During the basic sciences program, again, we discussed the anatomy lab. The anatomy lab was a very humbling experience for me. I think it was surreal to be in this room, to know that there were actual cadavers and not the electronic screens that a lot of schools use for anatomy. So I would just suggest that once you're accepted to the school and you enter the anatomy lab, so just take some time to take in that moment and make sure you thank your cadaver for donating their bodies to science and for your learning abilities. That's a very important thing that we don't want to forget. So life on the island, I lived in an area called St. Peter's or Shadwell. It's about 7 minutes from the school on the shuttle. You will get a bus schedule every day about the drop-offs and pickups times. As Dr. Zach said, they're usually at 7 in the morning, and the last one is at 11 p.m. I also had the same schedule. I would take the early shuttle at 7, leave at 11, and the bus drivers know your schedule. And so I was very blessed that when I would arrive back to my apartment at 11 p.m., they would wait for me to go all the way up to the 3rd floor of my apartment, open the door, walk in, and flick the lights before they drove off. They wanted to make sure that you were safe and in your apartment and that you were okay. You also get to know the other students on your route. And a lot of us relocate alone. So just meeting students, especially if you come down for the ARP program, you're there a whole semester early. So you really get to know other students, get to learn your routes and the area that you're living in. The housing department also does a very good job of vetting the spaces for students. So they make sure you have all of the appliances that you need, your gas is intact. Some of the places have bars on the windows. If you want that, that's great. If not, they'll help you find a spot that's feasible for you and fits your price range. And they come in and do a walk around with you when you guys arrive to Island. So they really make sure that you're okay every step of the way. As far as things to bring to Island, students always ask me, how did you find food? What did you do for shopping? The Island has stores that are very similar to what you will find at home. This is a great example. They have lovely produce sections, dairy sections, meat sections, literally everything that you need. Usually you can find on Island or something that's very similar to it. The only thing I would suggest is if there are certain prescription medications that you're taking, go ahead and bring several months worth of those, just in case it takes a little bit of time to get things to you on the island. If you have a hygiene product that you can't live without, your favorite shampoo or deodorant, you can bring that as well, but usually you can find the things that you need on island. And one of the last things that I'll say is that the professors, as we mentioned prior, they are not required to do research. So they are available to speak to you literally whenever you need them. Dr. Ayer mentions that in his schedule, he has a dedicated block of time to speak to students, but I can remember literally walking out of the classroom with the professors as they were going to their office, and I would just walk with them and have a conversation about either something in the content that they just covered or a question that I had from last week that I remembered. And I can speak specifically to Dr. Ayer. I remember after every immuno exam, I would schedule a meeting with him to go over the questions, to talk about where the deficits were in my learning. And one style that I like to do is to try to teach the content back to the professor. That way they, for one, see that you're putting in time and being an active participant in your own education, but then they're able to kind of fill in the gaps or steer your learning to make sure that you are filling in those deficits and providing you with the best opportunities to succeed.
Thank you, Allison. Before we move off of basic sciences, there's two things that I think are important to talk about. One is that I'm a big supporter, the university is a big supporter of our Global Health Initiative. And every year we send our students off to various locations around the world. Mostly it's been Central America, where they get to work in underserved areas with a team of international doctors that are recognized from a international organization that provide the transportation, security, housing for as many as 25 of our students. We bring in a group of our own MD faculty to supervise and provide oversight. And it's a very rewarding experience that I think is life changing for you, because, you know, for example, there's been instances where we go to Guatemala and you work in a town where people have never seen a doctor before. So the opportunity to be able to work in that kind of environment and change their lives is so, it changes your life forever. So we're very supportive of that. We've mostly been Central America. We're looking at expanding into Africa and possible other parts of the world. We've had discussions with Yale University recently about participating in their global health program in the clinical area, and that's for students who have completed the basic sciences, who want to do clinical electives in places like India or Vietnam or some of the other locations that they're in. So there's going to be some clinical and we also we promote research on the island, and we do have Craig Ayer tonight. He's the chairman of the research division, and it is still a really important, because one of the things, when you're applying for a residency, what differentiates you from all the others? And I believe that if you can participate in research, whether it's on island or in the United States, and we know that a lot of our seniors are participating in research projects around the country, and I've had students who were accepted into research projects at Harvard, Johns Hopkins, a number of other places around the country, and we really support that. And you work with our clinical dean to approve those research projects. I'm a believer, and it looks great on your CV. Craig, maybe you could talk a little bit about the research.
Yeah, I would be happy to. So, as President Ross mentioned, research is a significant part of what you can put on your CV as an aspiring resident. And it may be something that you have a passion for. So, some of the things that I like to highlight about research when you get into medical school is that research looks very, very different from what you might have done yourself or experienced in your undergraduate, or if you've done a graduate program. So you're somebody like me. I have a PhD, it's in immunology. I got it by research. So that means I've published a whole bunch, and I've got a few things that I discovered, and it took 5.5 years of my life working 40 hours a week. That's what research looks like when you're in graduate school. So the average person who goes to graduate school does about 2,000 hours of research a year. A medical student can do maybe about 500 hours of research in the entirety of their program, because that's the way that a medical program is designed. You're a clinician, not at a bench. And so medical research looks very, very different when you are a medical student. So what do we focus on? The most important thing for us at UMHS is my primary role, and the primary role of all faculty members, is to be your professors, to be a teacher. And so research has to fit into that as an objective. So the focus of research in the Basic Sciences program is on integrating into the curriculum to highlight modern medical practice. So what does that mean? So let's say you're in my class, genetics, immunology, either one. We're going to teach you about the principles of genetics, the principles of immunology, but we're also going to teach about 40, 50 different diseases that you're going to see in those areas, and the latest that's coming out into clinics in those areas. Well, those are absolutely wonderful grounds for discussing or putting out a literature review, a research paper on that area, where you want to bring clinicians who are in practice up to the level that you are now. So you become a peer in the field in that area. So examples in my domain, I have students who are interested in writing about autoimmune disease. So you might have seen my picture, when I turn my camera off, I have a little bit more hair there. I actually have an autoimmune disease. I'm allergic to my own hair. And that sparked a little bit of my interest in autoimmune diseases. So I have some students who also are interested in writing about autoimmune disease. So things like lupus, multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis. Um, and unless you are a rheumatologist, that's a practicing immunologist, unless you are a rheumatologist, you might not know what the latest is in that area. So you as a medical student getting the latest and greatest can really contribute to the success of your peers by putting out what you know in this kind of review style. So we have immunology, we have genetics, we have interested people who are interested in behavioral sciences, people who are interested in pharmacology. Right now, I have a student who's currently in the main semester. While she was doing her rotations with us at the hospital in St. Kitts, saw a super rare, super interesting case. In fact, there's only about 6 documented cases worldwide of what she saw at JNF in a pediatrics patient. And in fact, there is almost no literature that can talk about the case that she saw. This was a patient. So she's working with me right now on actually putting out a brief publication on this patient just to talk about some of the anatomical and physiological findings. So that was part of her experience going through the introduction to clinical medicine. As we've talked about, we have our lab, our anatomy lab, that uses cadavers. Because we use cadavers, that means we find unique anatomical findings relatively regularly. So these are things that might not always be documented well. These might be unique structures that are uncovered, or they might be rare structures that are uncovered. And so our students have had a lot of success publishing case reports from our cadaveric dissection. So these are things that you're doing immediately from EBS 1. So the focus of our faculty is making, if we participate in research, a part of your curriculum and fitting it into what you're doing. As you get into your clinical years, you get more exposure in your rotations to additional things like clinical trials. You get exposure to new therapeutics that come onto the market. You get exposure to the differential diagnoses that you're going to look at in grand rounds. So things that you can write and talk about from your day-to-day experiences. So your clinical preceptors can help with that. Every hospital has got a research director. Every hospital has clinical trial directors who are always looking for people who can either help to run research, to analyze data, to help write up findings. So the avenues for students don't look like what you may have already participated in, but are diverse and numerous throughout your program. The key is that you have to be very self-driven for them. So medical school is intense. It's intense for everybody, no matter where you go. So being self-directed, self-driven, and being able to take ownership of your project and bring it to completion is what is essential for that kind of success. So you really want your professors, your preceptors, and these individuals to be the guide rather than the conductor. So if this is something that you're interested in, I strongly encourage you to think about how you can find your mentor who can help model success for you, but take ownership and drive these kinds of things for yourself. Because what you're doing is building your competitiveness, building your CV, making yourself a stronger and stronger applicant as you go forward.
Thank you, Craig. So you're preparing all the way through the basic sciences, ultimately for USMLE, whether it's the block examinations, final examinations, self-examination, quizzes, mentoring, tutoring, learning specialists, all of that, culminates until you get to the 5th semester. And then you get to the 5th semester and you're now in Introduction to Clinical Medicine 2, and then a 15-week Kaplan review program. introducing clinical materials. You sit for a diagnostic examination at the beginning of the Kaplan review to see where your strengths and weaknesses are. You continue throughout the 15 weeks to working with faculty from U.S. medical schools who have a background in USMLE, and they work through all the kind of the high caliber, the most important aspects of USMLE. And then you sit for the final examination. Upon passing that examination, you are now eligible to sit for step one. However, what happens is that from the time you finish the 5th semester to the time you sit for USMLE, if you sit in the first window, it's usually 3 months from the date that you complete to the date that you start, to the date that you take the examination. And what happens is that students then really start to utilize their other resources during that time. And that could be AMBOSS, UWorld, First Aid, a number of other things. During that time, we also now mandate that all students sit for the Comprehensive Basic Science Examination, the CBSE. CBSE was developed by U.S. medical schools as a mock USMLE examination. And if students don't perform as well as they hope to, then they are now mandated to meet with the learning specialist to review that examination and to figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are. And you may want to delay you're taking the examination until you get the score that you're looking for. We are also going to be integrating into that review a program called Insight, which was developed by National Board of Medical Examiners. And what it allows you to do is get a very, very detailed review of your exam, the results, so that you can be better prepared and perform at a higher level once you've incorporated Insight into your review program. So we are using CBSE. It's not mandatory you have to have a certain score, but it allows you to gauge if you're ready and prepared to sit for USMLE. Once you pass USMLE, then you enter into the clinical program starting in your 6th semester. And we're affiliated now currently with over 26 teaching hospitals throughout the United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico. We're affiliated with hospitals in Connecticut, New York, Maryland, Michigan, soon to be Illinois, Oklahoma, California, Georgia, Florida, Canada, and Puerto Rico, and Wisconsin. And that we are always looking to expand in certain regions, looking to expand in California, looking to expand in Canada. We have 6 hospitals currently in Puerto Rico that we're utilizing, and we're looking to continue to expand in Puerto Rico. One of the nice things about Puerto Rico, I don't know how many students are on who are from Puerto Rico. We're one of the few schools, maybe the only school that's actually affiliated with a medical school in Puerto Rico through Ponce School of Medicine, which is an LCME accredited medical school. We're very close with the dean and the president there. They've been very supportive. They love our students. And I think part of the success of this program is that because our students are able to, rotate at many of the teaching hospitals in Puerto Rico, they are very well received when it comes time to applying for residencies in Puerto Rico. And in fact, what's unique about Puerto Rico is that many of our students are actually getting residencies outside the match, meaning that the hospitals are offering them the residency positions before they even graduate. They are not even going through the residency matching program. So that is a testimonial to the caliber and the quality of the academic program, but even greater testimonial to the quality of our students. So it speaks very highly to them. I am curious, Zach and Allison, how did the fifth semester prepare you for the clinical program? Because remember you're transitioning from a basic science program, you're about to enter into a clinical program. You got to be a little nervous. Am I going to be able to compete with the students at U.S. schools? Am I as good? Am I as prepared as they are? So what was your experience like going through the fifth semester and then transitioning into the clinical program?
That's a good question. Definitely when we were in Maine, one of the things that I enjoyed was the organ system-based curriculum that we transitioned to in the Maine semester. So in basic sciences, we do discipline-based. You have your chemistries, you have your immuno and genetics, but in Maine, we target the issue in organ system. So you look at the conditions for your respiratory system versus your GI tract. And those really allow you to start to think and process as a physician, as a clinician. And that's very important for entering your clinical rotations. So during the time in Maine, they teach you how to process that information. And then you get to practice those skills with standardized patients, preparing for your OSCEs or in your clinical setting that they have for you. So the students are actually paired with a peer, and you will act in two roles, one as the physician and as a scribe. And as you enter this patient's room, you have a full patient encounter. So you introduce yourself to the patient, you take a thorough history, you do a physical exam, and then you present your case to your preceptor. And doing so, you learn how to come up with your diagnosis list, which is very important for your clinical rotations. And then you talk to the patient about proper treatments, making sure they understand their options and providing education. And in doing that and building those skills, that was a very vital part of the training in Maine, because in my clinical rotations, I was able to enter a patient's room, have a very thorough encounter, get a history, do the physical exam, and present the findings to my preceptor along with the diagnosis list to show that I knew how to put together the symptoms that the patient presented with any labs values that were available, and then come up with a diagnosis and treatment plan for those patients. And that's very important in the clinical settings. So the preceptors that I've had have spoken very highly of the training that we have at UMHS, how we're able to come out into the clinical setting and know how to take a patient history, do a thorough physical exam, and answer those questions that patients may have about why we're doing the exams and what the symptoms may mean.
I'll piggyback off of that quick. The fifth semester in Maine is what really separates UMHS apart from not only other Caribbean schools, but US schools. Like Allison said, it really prepares you for your third and fourth years of medical school and clinical rotations. You can refer back to many instances in Maine where you recall that you learned that, or remember to do this on your physical exam when seeing the patient. And then when you're attending, ask you, did you, what are the signs of right heart failure? And you can go through everything that you checked on the physical exam. You're only going to impress them. And that's what I saw during my clinical rotations. Rotated with people from Michigan State, Johns Hopkins, some UCLA, USC. Rotated with a lot of people from really all over a bunch of different medical schools, and I think that's really what set us apart. And my attendings noticed that as well. I got a lot of good, well thought and really meaningful letters of recommendation from every place I went, because I didn't necessarily know exactly what I wanted to do. So I ended up asking and having like 30 letters of recommendation, because I asked everybody that I had a good experience with or that I thought could write me a good letter. And in that specialty, because I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, to write me a letter of rec. And, obviously I didn't see some of them, but from what I've been told by places where I applied my letters of rec, sort of just spoke volumes about me, and spoke volumes about, they haven't seen somebody have the training like this at a Caribbean school. And I just think it speaks volumes for UMHS.
Thanks, Zach. So we're affiliated with 26 teaching hospitals. You complete your course in your third year. That's surgery, OBGYN, pediatrics, family medicine, internal medicine. That you have to go to our hospital, our affiliated hospitals for the core rotations. That's your senior year. And you have multiple locations, and you'll work with our placement office, and you'll let them know what your geographical preference is. Most people want to complete their course within a specific hub, strategic regional hub, so they don't have to hop, skip, and jump around the country. And then for your electives, we always encourage students to do their electives at not only our affiliates, but also to go to hospitals they're interested in doing residencies. Because by doing that, you can showcase yourself, get a view of the hospital, see if this is a hospital that you want to go to, but also it allows the hospital to get to know you, the residency directors and the residents, so they can see how qualified you are, what the caliber of the student is, how dedicated you are, motivated. And that helps really a lot because, think about a standard residency director. They get thousands of applications from unknown candidates, but if they get to know you, you did your clinicals there, it gives you a leg up over many of these other students. So we encourage that. We really want to see students go out there and you can go to virtually almost any teaching hospital throughout the United States with the support of the clinical department. Just Zach and Allison, I know Zach, did you do any showcasing when you were there in terms of hospitals that you were interested in? How did you find your hospital?
So I tried to do a rotation, an elective rotation over at interventional radiology or even diagnostic radiology at Cornwall Health West, where I was. Just for when I found out that I wanted to do radiology and having to go through the process, I wasn't able to. Now, that being said, at every place that I rotated, for radiology, McLaren Macomb, McLaren Oakland, Ascension Providence, all these places I received interviews, and it went swimmingly. When you are on your clinical rotations and you have, a month or potentially more, there's one elective you can do 6 weeks. That is a 1 month interview, and they really, when you do your interview for residency later on, it's really just, hey, how are you doing? What are you thinking? How's the interview track going? Because they already know who you are. They already know what kind of a worker you are. They already know how you're going to be as a resident because they worked with you for a month. So getting your boots on the ground and going to these places for electives really can sort of allow you to match at a spot that possibly might have never looked at you. The way the match goes now with gold tokens, silver tokens, bronze tokens, all of these things, that's sort of how you differentiate people with signals and things like that. But if you can get somewhere, show your face, show how hard you're working, it really goes a long way. And like President Ross said, some of our people in Puerto Rico go and they do some rotations at a hospital there, and they like them so much that they're like, yeah, we're going to remove our spot from the match, we're giving it to you, and you don't even have to go through the match process. That's incredible, and it's honestly unheard of. It is very rare that a program will even take that risk of potentially not matching someone because they like you so much and they want you to match there. So once again, speaks volumes of the program, and I think it's a really good idea to try to pick where your electives are and where you want to try to go, and really go sort of have a month interview to really show them what you know.
I think what is also important there, Zach, is that, I think the success of our students is a couple things. One, good reputation, our accreditations, various accreditations, and what they really mean, especially recognition by the U.S. Department of Education, and kind of the network of people who have preceded you help kind of pave the way for all future graduates. And that, this last year, we had the highest percentage of students actually obtain a residency, which was 92%, which is, in my view, is outstanding for a Caribbean medical school. And you can see that we're actually placing in virtually every, residency specialty possible. I mean, interventional radiology was not an easy residency to obtain, but we also have people who are doing surgery now. For example, Kirthi, that you mentioned earlier, she went through the ARP program, and is proof that it's a good, solid program, and that it really builds the foundation of success that you need for the rest of your life. So, the world's an oyster to you. It just depends how hard you want to work, how dedicated you are, and how focused you are. There's no mystery to medicine. It's hard work, it's dedication, it's motivation, it's knowing what you want to do and putting your whole heart to it and knowing that this is what you want to do for the rest of your life. So, good, solid program. We have our accreditation. I mentioned the ACCM. So we talked a little bit about that. ACCM is recognized by U.S. Department of Education. So we just recently had a review by them. And, generally, and that we also just got reviewed by St. Kitts too. So St. Kitts was last year, ACCM was this year. St. Kitts, we just got a 5-year approval, and ACCM, we got a 6-year approval. But what was amazing is that, I've been in this business since 1978, and I've gone through a lot of reviews. It is the very first time that we had 0 sites, meaning that they did not call us on anything. And now think about this. They apply the LCME standards to our institution. They're looking at resources, faculty, caliber and quality of the faculty, caliber and quality of the students, admission standards, finances, clinical program, curriculum development, you name it, every aspect of the institution. We sailed through with flying colors. That says a lot about this institution. I don't know of any of the Caribbean schools that can meet that standard. It's our dedication to making sure that the quality of the education and the caring for the students is number one. And I really, I know I love talking about my institution, but I'm really proud of that fact. It's really, to me, that's really says a lot about the institution. So we're fully accredited, good program, good outcomes, good performance, resources, with every resource you can imagine, we're providing to our students. And at the end of the day, this is all about you. It's all about your success. This is what your dream is. We're just here to make sure you're going to accomplish that goal and dream. So I'm not sure if I missed anything, Sean. Did I miss anything?
I'll have to admit, I've been so busy in the Q&A area. I don't think so, because I've been half listening. So we've had some wonderful questions, and I think we've really touched on really everything we have. So I think so, but keep them coming in for sure. Do we want to move on and talk about admissions now, I guess, if we can
I think we can go on to that, Sean.
All right, sounds good. So, obviously, we've had a very busy Q&A session. I know you all can't see all of that, so thanks to those of you who have been submitting those questions. And by the way, as a thank you, as you may know, after the session this evening, we will be emailing you with part of our thank you, which is our application fee waiver code. You'll get that via email. And there were a couple of questions about a recording of the presentation this evening, and we are recording as well. So that will be available on our YouTube channel within a day or so. So you will be able to go back and review any of the information that you heard this evening, if you so desire. And we'll also, of course, be providing our contact information so you can get in touch with our staff after the program this evening. So, I said once you heard everyone talking about the program in great detail, you'd probably have one main question, and that would be, okay, great. So how do I get in? So I'll walk you through that very briefly, give you a high-level overview of the admissions and application process. All of the applications to UMHS begin right on our website, umhs.org. You've all been there. Sign up for this session. So you can head back there, head to the admissions page. It's an online application. You have a couple of options there. The main one, if you have not applied already using one of the big application services, whether that's AMCAS or ACOMAS or the OMSAS if you're in Ontario, or the TMD SAS if you're in Texas, we have our own application as well. So if you have not applied using one of the big services, you'll fill out the UMHS application right there on our website. If you have applied using one of the big services, again, AMCAS, ACOMAS, TMD, SAS, or OMSAS, you can submit a PDF copy of that, and it makes the process a little more streamlined. So more information about that on the website. In order to be eligible, in order to be considered for admission, and I know a number of you are in all different stages as I've been answering questions specifically about your individual cases in the Q&A, you need a minimum of at least 90 undergraduate credits. And that basically means the equivalent of 3 undergraduate years. So no, you do not specifically need a bachelor's degree, but I will tell you most students are coming in with a bachelor's degree. So the reason that we say that, and most medical schools have similar language, they do so to allow you to apply after you complete your junior year while you were in your senior year if you are a traditional type of a student. There's a specific slate of prerequisites that you need to have completed as part of that, and that's a year of basic biology with lab, a year of basic chemistry with lab, a year of organic chemistry with lab, 1 semester of physics. You need a math, you need an English. Pretty standard as far as medical school prerequisites go. If you are in the quote unquote pre-med program or pre-med track at your undergraduate institution, those are the courses you will be taking. And there's really no difference in what our prerequisites are than the other schools that are requiring prerequisites. Some schools in the US have gotten away from that and are looking for a basic, liberal slate of courses. We, like most schools, are still using the very specific courses: Bio 1 and 2 with lab, Chem 1 and 2 with lab, Organic 1 and 2 with lab, Physics 1 with lab, English, and Math, which is going to be calculus or stats. And again, those courses are available right on our website. The MCAS required for U.S. citizens, residents, and anyone who's done their undergraduate education in the United States of America. Students from Canada are not specifically required to submit an MCAT, but it's certainly highly recommended. If you're from somewhere else in the world, it's also not required specifically, but it is always recommended. And I'll talk about the decision-making process in just a minute and how we look at that. We're going to ask you for a CV or resume. We want to know a little bit about you and what you've done, what types of experience you've had to prepare to go to medical school. As far as letters of recommendation, we do require them. If you go to a school that produces a committee letter for its applicants to medical school, that's all you will need. If you are a non-traditional student, or if your school does not do committee letters, then we require a minimum of 2 letters of recommendation, at least one of which should be academic in nature. Personal essay, make sure you follow the directions on the essay. I've been doing this for working with medical students now for 19 years. All too often, you will see a candidate get kicked back to us because they didn't follow directions. They may have an 8-page, single-spaced, 10-point font manifesto about what they want to do in healthcare with their career, but that's not following directions. You'll see that it's much more difficult of an exercise to write a concise statement about your goals and interests, and that's essentially what we're asking for. So that's part of the process. Once you submit all of those things, it will come into our administrative office in New York. We will do an initial review. We will put together an evaluation of your prerequisite courses. We will break down your transcripts in a number of different ways. We create not only a true cumulative GPA for all of the courses that you've taken, we're also breaking down your prerequisite courses. So we create a GPA just for the courses that you've taken that meet those prerequisite requirements. And if you have taken advanced sciences, it's not a requirement, certainly. So I don't want you to misunderstand that. But for those of you who have gone on and done courses at the advanced level in biology or chemistry, we create an advanced science GPA as well. And for the members of the admissions committee, which are all made up of faculty. Even though I hold the title that I'm the vice president for admissions, I don't make the admissions decisions like any legitimate medical school. It's the faculty who are making decisions about who is coming into the program and who they will get to teach in the program. So the committee is made up of 8 faculty members. They're there in St. Kitts. They review everything after the interview, I should note. So the interview is a very important part of the process for us. And as many of you know, we have admission staff on our team who are spread geographically throughout North America. And those are the people you'll be working with to get ready to apply, to answer your questions about the university and working with you through the application process. And they will sit down with you either in person or what's much more common, of course, these days is a virtual interview over Zoom. Most of the interviews these days are taking place over Zoom. So we really get to know you and hear what your goals are, interests, what you'd like to accomplish as a physician, why, of course, you want to pursue this, why, of course, you feel you deserve an opportunity in our program. And all of that gets packaged together and shipped electronically to the members of the admissions committee who read through everything. They will discuss, they will vote, and they will make a decision. So I think it's important, to note about the interviews that, we're trying to cast a pretty wide net here. And I mentioned at the outset of the presentation that there are more than 50,000 people that are applying to U.S. medical schools, around 20,000 applying to Canadian medical schools, but only about 22 or 23,000 are gaining admission or who are, actually matriculating each year to U.S. med schools, and only about 3,000 who are matriculating in Canadian medical schools. And what often happens is so much of the time and energy and effort that goes into the process that you put in goes by the wayside because many students don't even get to tell their story in an interview because so many schools, with the number of applicants that they have, what medical schools do is they take a look at minimum MCAT scores, they take a look at minimum GPAs, and they make decisions based on, what could just basically go on a business card. What's your MCAT, what's your GPA, and I could tell you if you're going to be admitted or not. Well, that does not happen here. This is a real human process. So, aside from being filtered out because your MCAT wasn't high enough, your GPA wasn't high enough at most schools, you're also most likely not getting a chance to tell your story. So many schools are only interviewing 5, 7, 8, 10, 12% of the applicants to their medical school. And, we certainly find, and I know from my many years of experience, that the best way to find out whether or not a candidate will be a good fit in your program is to sit down with them and talk to them and find out about them. And certainly in the context of an interview, you can do that. So we actually try and interview as many students as we can. And typically in a given year, we'll interview 8 or 9 out of every 10 applicants. So we're going to give you the opportunity to tell your story. And that gives our folks in admissions, the admission staff who are completing the interviews, the opportunity to relate that story to the members of the admissions committee, who are then going to review your file and make a decision. So what are those decisions? The admissions committee has a couple of different decisions at their disposal. Obviously, the one that we're hoping for you is to be accepted. And if you are accepted, you'll be placed by the members of the admissions committee into one of the 2 tracks that you heard about, either the med program, which is the standard 4-semester program you complete in 16 months in St. Kitts, or the what we call extended basic science program, where you take the same courses, we just stretch it out over 5 semesters and 20 months in St. Kitts. Also, as you heard Allison describe, her experience starting in the accelerated review program, that is a decision of the members of the admissions committee. If the committee sees a lot of potential in you and in your application, and they feel that you're not quite ready to succeed just yet in semester 1 of the program, but some additional strengthening of your academic foundation would be helpful to get you ready, they will invite you to the accelerated review program, which again is that 1-semester program, 15 weeks in St. Kitts, gets you ready. And all you have to do is pass the program, and then you will move seamlessly into semester 1 of the full MD program at the following term. There are some students who, for whatever the reason may be, just aren't ready, even for ARP, and some additional strengthening outside of that program would be required. And so there are certainly cases where students are denied. But what I think is really Important being at a smaller school like this, working closely with the members of the faculty on the admissions committee, they will give recommendations. And so we try not to look at it, and it's a cliche for sure. We try not to look at it as a no, more of a not yet. And we will give you feedback on why you fell short in the admissions process, and we will let you know what you can do, whether it's 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, a year, or however long it may be to strengthen your application. But we will let you know what you can do to improve your application and take another shot at some point in the future. So once you're offered admission, once you decide to enroll at the university, of course, then the next step is, well, okay, well, how am I going to pay for it? So financial aid is certainly available. But before I talk about a little bit about financial aid, that's right. I'm sorry, Michelle, I got ahead of myself. I want to talk about what it costs. And you can see on that slide that shows the breakdown of our tuition. And this number is across 10 semesters. So this is the entirety of the tuition at UMHS. Whether you're in the EBS program or whether you're in the med program, the cost is the same. Everything's prorated. So 184,850 US dollars for the entirety of the program. You can see how that compares to your options, certainly in the US and also other Caribbean medical schools. And I was corresponding with some folks who are currently enrolled or on here this evening who are currently enrolled in other medical schools. And so they're certainly aware of the higher costs elsewhere. So what you're getting at UMHS represents a tremendous value because this is the cost. President Ross is able to keep costs low, as he talked about. Other medical schools are owned by large corporations, and the priority number one for large corporations is to funnel money to their shareholders, and it's a very simple fact. But when you're with a smaller institution like ours, President Ross, his priority is to funnel money back into the institution. So, very, very clear where your tuition dollars are going. You can see how very favorably we compare. So what are your options to help you pay for it? Because not everybody's got a rich uncle. Not everybody's got $184,000 stashed away to pay for medical school. Certainly scholarships are available, and there is a full listing on our website. You're automatically reviewed for those, by the way, so there's no separate application for those based on undergraduate GPA. So very simple structure there. Let's go back. And so very simple structure there. The full list, again, is on the website if you want to review that beyond this evening. And in terms of financial aid, private loans are available through Sallie Mae, which is the largest provider, one of the largest, if not the largest provider of private loans. That's for U.S. citizens or private residents, and again, available for students in each of our programs. Our Canadian friends have lines of credit available to them from Canadian banks. And there are also some limited institutional loans available. And I should note, after you are accepted to the university, one of the first departments you will be in contact with is financial aid to make sure that you have a good game plan to be prepared to pay for your medical education, because it's a commitment not only academically, but financially as well. And while our commitment is certainly considerably less, as you saw, than some of our peers, certainly internationally, certainly it is still something to be considered for sure. So let's jump ahead, Michelle, to the value, and I'll run through some of what we talked about, and just as a recap. And then we'll go to graduation as well. So as you saw, as you heard, all of the wonderful things about the program in total all leads to tremendous outcomes. We're very proud of our graduates. You heard Dr. Vanderveer talk personally about his experience. You've got Allison, who will be joining the ranks of our graduates in the not too distant future. We're really proud. 92% of our students, our graduates, have their residency in place at the time of graduation. And that is that's huge. And again, especially many of the students who are coming to UMHS have had a door closed in their face, whether it be in their home country, their home state, whatever it is. And in so many cases, we've been able to open a door of opportunity for them to have them come through and achieve their dream of becoming a physician. And it's because of the personalized education, the high academic standards that have led to what, as President Ross talked about, 96% student retention, which conversely, of course, is 4% attrition. So we're very proud of that. Thanks to the learning specialists, dedicated faculty, smaller class size, but still having a state-of-the-art campus and tremendous facilities. getting you ready in St. Kitts to come back to North America, getting into the hospitals, doing what it is that you do as a physician, treating patients, working clinically, getting prepared to pass the licensing exams. You see the high pass rates on the USMLEs, 100% pass rate on the MCCQE Canadian exam, tremendous residency placements, but all at an affordable tuition with comprehensive financial aid options. So tremendous value. And I do want to sort of start to wrap up by showing you a little bit about how you celebrate your graduation. And that's in New York City every year. Coming to New York City, Avery Fisher Hall of Lincoln Center. For those of you who are from the New York area, you'll be familiar with Lincoln Center. And that's where your UMHS graduation takes place. President Ross, right in the middle of these smiling graduates who come in every year and get together and celebrate this momentous achievement in your life, something that you've been working not just for the 4 years of medical school, but certainly for years and years before that, just to get to this point. So it's an unbelievable achievement, and certainly the world needs more doctors. We all know that. Don't let a door being closed in your face, end that dream. So UMHS can be the place that opens the door of opportunity for you. So I want to begin to wrap up then by thanking everyone for chiming in the Q&A. It looks like I have a few more I need to get back to, and I will certainly do that before we close out this evening. But before we get there, Michelle, we'll save that for last. Let's swing back to the smiling faces of our graduates and President Ross, as I give an opportunity first to Allison Shipp. And Allison, thanks so much for being here this evening. If there were any last parting words of wisdom that you can impart unto our audience of prospective medical students, what would they be?
Sure. First, again, I would like to just thank you for taking the time to join the webinar. The decision that you're making to apply to medical school, to potentially leave your home, your family, and your friends and move to the island of St. Kitts is a huge decision. Dr. Zach and I have both gone through that. We know what you're going through. We understand the process that you are embarking upon, but we are here with you to answer any questions that you may have. Continue to do your research on this program, dive through our website, look at what we have to offer. If you have additional questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. I also, in your position, asked to speak to a current student to get a more personalized conversation and more information about what life was like on the island of St. Kitts and how prepared I felt. So definitely, if you have questions that you would like for me to answer, I don't mind sharing my contact information with you. Also have a conversation with your family and friends, a very realistic conversation about the experience that you're about to have and what type of support you will need from them. They are still a part of your community, even if you come to the island of St. Kitts, and we definitely hope that you join our program and join our family. Best of luck to you.
Thanks so much, Allison, and thanks for spending some of your very precious time as a fourth-year medical student with our audience this evening. So Dr. Zach Vanderveer, thanks so much for taking some time out of your very busy schedule as a PGY2. You've got a lot on your plate, obviously, as well. So any last words for our audience?
Yeah, UMHS is an extremely special place. I have a ton of friends that I am still very close with from the island. Bunch of them in Puerto Rico, one right in Detroit here. That's pretty close to me. We still hang out, we still text, we still see each other. And it is just a very special community. You can go anywhere to get trained in medicine. The curriculum is going to be very similar wherever you go. But it's about the school, it's about the atmosphere, it's about, being a person and not a number. And, and it's certainly about, some of the perks of what that school has to offer. And, Allison's a great example. And then, like President Ross showed, the end goal is to get to residency. And, we put that chart up. We're pretty much matching every specialty now. I know we matched ortho for the first time, I think, the year before my match, so 2023, which was a huge deal for us. Interventional radiology is a very, very, very difficult specialty to match into. blessed to be where I'm at. But you know, UMHS is really starting to knock down these barriers, knock down these walls, and you know, I'm happy to be a part of it and continue to provide for you students, and hopefully, you know, continue to pave the way where, you know, nothing's impossible. And honestly, with UMHS, it isn't. If you want to put in the work, you'll get where you want to go.
Thanks, Dr. Vanderveer. Matt, last parting words for you.
Yeah, I want to encourage you to look at our school. I think we do have an incredible facility on the island. I think the buildings are beautiful, the landscaping's beautiful, the professors are top notch. I will just share an inside working story with you. I was busy Monday morning. We're getting people ready for their first diagnostic for a step 1 exam, and I was meeting with a number of students to make sure that their needs were okay. And I got a call, which I get fairly regularly, from the president. And the president comes through on my Skype line and he says, Matt, do you know such and such a student? I know this information about them. I've never seen an institution of higher ed that has a president reaching out for more information about the students that they've already committed to. And that is a regular occurrence at our school. And I will just share that with you as parting words. We value students.
Right. Thanks, Dr. Michaud, for spending some of your time with us this evening. Dr. Ayer.
Well, hi, everybody. I just want to say thank you for joining us this evening, wherever you are, and spending some of your time with us. I hope that we've answered your questions, but feel free to reach out to any one of us at any time. Our email addresses are quick to find, and we will get back to you with whatever information you feel that you still need for making your decision. But I'm a faculty member, first and foremost. I'm a teacher. I've been a teacher for 10 years. It's the way that I see myself. It's the way that I think about myself. So coming to UMHS for me was a natural fit because it was a group of people who said, hey, if you want to be a good teacher, I got a school for you. And so for me, this was the hand in glove fit for where I wanted to be. And I get to try to be really good at the thing I love to do. You're thinking about medicine right now. This is the thing that you want. This is how you see yourself. So as you start making these decisions and as you start getting this information, I want you to remember this is one of the most consequential decisions that you're going to make in your life. How you choose to go about this, where you choose to go, is intensely personal and monumentally important. There are hundreds of schools that can turn you into a doctor. That's it. A degree is just a degree. What you want is a school that's going to match what you need and put its effort into getting you there. You don't want it to be you against the world. So I work really hard for my students because I believe in their dream and I see that they believe in it and they're putting the work into it. That's a natural environment. That's the supportive environment that you want to find. Look for people who are going to invest in you as much as you're about to invest in yourself. And it's my belief that because UMHS is centered on making sure that students get the best possible experience that they can and the most personal experience that they can, that this is a place that invests in the people who choose to come with us. So it's not about who can turn you into a doctor. It's about the place where you're going to be supported the best on your journey. And it is my absolute firm belief that you can find that with us. I hope to see you on the island soon. I really appreciate your time here with us.
Well said, Dr. Ayer. Thanks so much for your time this evening as well. We'll see you soon. Well, and with that, of course, it's the President's webinar for prospective students. So only fitting to hear a few final words from President Warren Ross.
Thank you, Sean. So we hopefully have imparted to you a real global perspective of the university. And I think we covered a lot in terms of what we offer prospective students, prospective of graduates, prospective of faculty, learning specialists, admissions. I think you have a very good idea of who we are and what we're all about. You have options when you apply. It's just what you're really looking for in an institution. I believe that in a small school environment, we can cater to your individual needs and help you succeed and achieve your dream of becoming a doctor. We're small enough to dedicate ourselves to you and the resources that are necessary to be successful. So if this is the type of environment that you're looking for, and you really know that the goal is to become a doctor, I think that we have the institution that can really get you across the line and succeed and become what you want to become and become the doctor that you want to be. So we believe in our students. We believe we have a really great education, and we're here, and I'm here to dedicate myself to you as a student. So on that, thank you all very much. It's really nice talking to you. I see a gazillion questions out there. I know Sean's little fingers had to have been typing away very quickly, but we appreciate the interaction, and we hope we answered all your questions. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank all of you.
Thank you, President Ross. Yeah, there were 40, well, looks like we hit 50 on the nose. So yes, so thank you very much for all of the interaction. And once again, we have been recording this evening. We will be posting this on our YouTube channel. If you'd like to review any of the information that was presented, you will be able to do so within about a day or so. It'll be up on our YouTube channel. So let's show all the places that our audience can interact with us going forward. Certainly, there's the website, umhs.org. Our email address, our main email address is admissions@umhs-sk.net. There's also the QR code there if you want to scan that. And we're on all the various social channels, Facebook, I mentioned YouTube, Instagram, X, TikTok, even SoundCloud. So we are out there. We look forward to working with you. A number of you were talking about going through the application process and beginning that soon. And admissions@umhs-sk.net is a great place to start via email. You can call us very easily. The phone number is on the website. So look forward to working with you throughout the remainder of this process. So it's coming up on 9:30 here in the Eastern US. So want to say thank you to everyone for joining us for this presentation. We really appreciate your time and interest in the university, and we look forward to working with you as you go through. So once again, my name is Sean Powers. I'm Vice President for Admissions at UMHS. And with that, I wish you a good evening. Thanks so much.